Welcome back. I've got a special story to share today.
My mother-in-law set the Aldridge Thanksgiving table for 13 people. There were 14 of us in the family. My name is Claire Aldridge. I am 38 years old. I want to be fair. I want you to understand that I loved this family. I cooked for them for 10 years, not because I had to. Because cooking is how I say the things my mouth cannot form into words. When my father-in-law had his bypass surgery, I made chicken and rice soup from scratch every day for 3 weeks. When my daughter Meredith won the school science fair, I made her a 3-tier lemon cake with cream cheese, frosting, and hand-piped stars on every layer. When Graham's firm closed the Riverwalk deal, I spent 14 hours making a low-country boil for 40 people in July heat. I did it because I loved them. That is not a small thing. And on Thanksgiving Day, 2022, at 11:45 in the morning, I walked into Joanne Aldridge's dining room carrying a pecan pie I had been perfecting since September, and my chair was gone. Not moved. Not folded and leaned against the wall. Gone. The table was set. 13 places. 13 monogrammed linen napkins. 13 crystal water glasses. 13 chairs around a 14-person imported cherry table that Joanne had shipped from a furniture maker in Asheville, North Carolina, in 2009 for $8,400. Every place had a name card, Joanne's handwriting. Graham, Meredith, Connor, Aunt Lucille, Uncle Harold, and so on down the line. My name was not on any card. I stood in the doorway holding the pie. The crust was latticed. I had used my mother's recipe, the one she taught me in our kitchen in Valdosta when I was 12, rolling dough on a cutting board my father made from a scrap of oak he found on his delivery route. The filling was dark with Caro syrup and butter, and the pecans my mother used to shell by the thousands at the Valdosta processing plant. I looked at the table. I looked at the pie. I looked at Joanne, who was adjusting a centerpiece of magnolias and Spanish moss as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Joanne," I said, "where should I sit?" She did not look up. "Oh, Claire," she waved her hand toward the kitchen. "We thought you might be more comfortable in there, with the serving." Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story hits close to home. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I would love to know where you are listening from, because what Joanne Aldridge did to me at that table was not the beginning. It was the end of something that had been dying for a very long time. But I will get to that. First, let me take you back to the spring of 2012, when I married the love of my life and walked into the most beautiful house I had ever seen. I met Graham Aldridge on March 14th, 2012, at the Savannah Music Festival opening gala. I was 25 years old, fresh out of college, working as an event coordinator for a small firm called Palmetto Events. My salary was $34,000 a year. My apartment was a studio above a bike shop on Bull Street. I drove a 2006 Honda Accord with 147,000 miles on it. The gala was at the Jepson Center. 200 guests. I was running the catering logistics when a man in a navy blazer walked up to my station and said, "Whoever made these shrimp and grits crostini is a genius." I had made them. They were not on the official menu. The caterer had forgotten the appetizer course, and I filled in from memory. "That would be me," I said. Graham smiled. It was a real smile, not a Savannah society smile. "Graham Aldridge." He shook my hand. I knew the name. Everyone in Savannah knew the Aldridge name. His father, Reed Aldridge, had developed half the commercial real estate on White Marsh Island. His mother sat on every board that mattered. Their house was a 6-bedroom colonial on a 2-acre lot overlooking the Wilmington River. I was a girl from Valdosta whose mother shelled pecans for $11.50 an hour. Graham did not seem to care. We dated for 7 months. He drove to Valdosta to meet my parents. He ate my mother's fried okra and asked for seconds. He told my father, "Sir, your daughter is the most talented person I have ever met." My father, David Holloway, a man who had driven a Pepsi truck for 31 years and never once called in sick, looked at Graham and said, "Talented is nice. Kind is better. Which one are you?" Graham said, "I'm trying to be both." We married on October 6, 2012. Small ceremony. 45 guests. I made the cake myself, a 4-tier almond cake with Georgia peach buttercream. It was the best thing I had ever baked. Joanne attended in a cream blazer and pearl earrings. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "Welcome to the family, dear." Her lips were cold, but I told myself it was the October air. For the first 2 years, the marriage was good. Graham was kind. Meredith was born in 2013. Connor in 2015. I cooked dinner every night. I made Sunday brunch for the extended family. I hosted Graham's business partners. I ironed tablecloths and arranged flowers and made sure every glass was filled. I was good at it, not because the Aldridges taught me, because my mother taught me, and Joanne noticed. That was the problem, not that I was bad at these things, that I was good at them. Good enough that people started saying, "Claire's dinners are better than the club's." Good enough that Graham's business partners requested my cooking specifically. Good enough that at the 2014 Aldridge Christmas party, Graham's cousin Bennett said, "Joanne, did you make this brisket?" And Joanne had to say, "Claire made it." She said it the way you say a word you do not want in your mouth. But what I did not know then, what I would not understand for years, was that Joanne had already started building the case against me. Not a legal case, a social one. The kind of case you build with whispers, small corrections, and carefully placed suggestions that sound like kindness but work like acid. The first time was small. Thanksgiving 2015. My 3rd year in the family. I arrived at Joanne's house at 7 in the morning to help cook. I had been assigned the sweet potato casserole and the pecan pie, both my mother's recipes, both requested by the family the year before. When I walked into the kitchen, a woman I had never met was standing at the island. White chef's coat, professional knife roll, organic sweet potatoes already peeled and cubed. "Oh," Joanne said, pouring herself coffee without looking at me. "Claire, this is Dana. She's a private chef. I thought we could use some professional help this year." Professional help. I had been cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 3 years. Nobody complained. Nobody sent a plate back, but Joanne wanted professional help. I want to be fair to Joanne. In the beginning, she tried. She invited me to her book club. She took me to lunch at the oldie pink house. She introduced me to her friends as Graham's wife. Never Claire. Never my daughter-in-law. Always Graham's wife. Like I was an accessory, I let it go. I let a lot of things go. But letting things go does not make them disappear. It just makes them invisible, and invisible things grow. By 2017, the pattern was clear. Every family event, my food was replaced. Easter 2016, Joanne hired a catering company for the brunch I had been making for 4 years. 4th of July 2017, she ordered barbecue from a restaurant instead of letting me smoke the ribs. Christmas 2017, she told Graham, "The children should eat something more refined." Refined, the word she always used. My food was not refined. My table settings were not refined. My conversation was not refined. I am from Valdosta, Georgia. My mother worked a factory line. My father drove a truck. I know who I am. There was one time Graham tried. Christmas 2016. I heard him in the hallway outside the kitchen. "Mom, Claire made the brisket. Can we at least put it on the table?" Joanne's voice was flat. "Graham, I am not serving 2 briskets at a Christmas dinner. People will think we cannot make up our minds." "Mom, she worked all day on it." "This is my house, Graham." He came back to the dining room and sat down. He did not look at me. That was the closest he ever came to choosing me, and it was not close enough. But knowing who you are does not protect you from someone who spends 10 years telling you that who you are is not enough. Here is a small example. September 2018. Connor's 3rd birthday party. I made a dinosaur cake, green buttercream, fondant triceratops on top. Connor loved dinosaurs. He called the triceratops Rixai, which was wrong, but he was 3. Joanne arrived and set down a box from a French bakery on East Broughton Street. Inside was a 3-tier vanilla cake with edible gold leaf. The price sticker was still on the box, $285. "I thought Connor deserved something special," she said. Connor blew out the candles on Joanne's cake. My dinosaur cake sat on the counter untouched until Graham threw it away that night. He did not even ask me first. "Mom's cake was plenty, Claire. No point in having 2. No point. I had spent 6 hours on that cake. I had sculpted the triceratops from fondant I dyed 3 different shades of green because Connor had told me his favorite dinosaur was the green one with the horns. I did not cry in front of Graham. I cried in the shower at 11 at night with the water running so nobody could hear. I tried. I need you to know that. I tried everything. In January 2019, I sat down with Graham at our kitchen table after the children were in bed. I said, "Graham, your mother has replaced my food at every family event for 4 years. She hired a private chef for Thanksgiving. She ordered restaurant barbecue for the 4th of July. She brought a $285 bakery cake to Connor's birthday and let my cake get thrown away. I need you to talk to her." Graham rubbed his face with both hands. "Claire, she is just trying to help. She is not trying to help, she is trying to erase me. That is a strong word. It is the right word." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I will talk to her." He did not talk to her. I know because 3 weeks later at Meredith's school recital, Joanne walked up to another parent and said, "Claire tries her best with food." But you know, some things require a certain background. The parent told me 2 days later. Her name was Angela Park. She said, "I thought you should know." I thanked her. Then I went home and stared at the ceiling for 45 minutes. I tried one more time. March 2020, I told Graham, "If your mother cannot treat me with basic respect, I will stop attending family events." He looked at me like I had pulled a fire alarm. "Claire, you cannot skip family events. People will talk." "People are already talking, Graham. The difference is they are talking about me behind my back while your mother serves someone else's food at our table." He said nothing. Then he went to bed. That was the last time I asked for help. I did not make a scene. I did not give an ultimatum out loud. But in my mind, a small door closed, and I started to plan. I want you to understand something about the way erosion works. Each incident by itself is too small to fight. A birthday cake is just a cake. A catering company is just convenience. A word like refined is just a word. But when you line them up over years, they form a wall. And one day you look up and you realize you are standing on the other side of it, alone. I should have seen Christmas 2022 coming. But when you love people, you keep giving them chances they have not earned. That is not wisdom. That is hope refusing to die. The holidays that year started normally. I asked Joanne in early November what she wanted me to bring for Thanksgiving. She said, "Oh, you do not need to worry about that, Claire. I have it handled." Handled. I had been cooking Thanksgiving dinner for the Aldridge family for 10 years. Suddenly it was handled. I brought the pecan pie anyway. I walked into the dining room at 11:45 in the morning on Thanksgiving Day, and my chair was gone. You already know this part. What you do not know is what happened after. I stood in that doorway for 8 seconds. I know because the grandfather clock in the hallway was ticking and I counted. 8 ticks. Then I walked into the kitchen and set the pie on the counter. I ate Thanksgiving dinner standing at the kitchen island while my family ate at the cherry table 15 feet away. Graham came in once. "Claire, come sit on the couch in the living room at least." I said, "No, thank you." He went back to the table. Meredith did not come check on me. Connor did not come check on me. Nobody came, except Aunt Lucille. She walked into the kitchen 20 minutes into the meal, holding her own plate. "This is ridiculous," she said. She sat on the stool next to me and ate her turkey and dressing right there at the counter. "How long has this been going on?" she asked quietly. 10 years, I said. Lucille set her fork down. "I know," she said. "I have been watching." That sentence changed everything. Not because it was dramatic, because it was honest. Lucille Prescott Hayes, 78 years old, Joanne's older sister, retired home economics teacher. She had watched her younger sister dismantle me for a decade and said nothing. Until now. "Why now?" I asked. "Because a missing chair is something even a coward cannot pretend not to see." She reached into her purse. She pulled out a folded sheet of lined paper. "I started keeping this list 3 years ago." On the paper, in careful handwriting, every family event I had been excluded from since 2019. 14 events, dates, descriptions, and the exact words Joanne used to justify each exclusion. Easter 2019, "Claire has the children this weekend." She did not. Christmas 2020, "We are keeping it small." 17 people attended. Connor's 6th birthday 2021. The party is for the children's friends. Every adult in the family was invited except me. Why did you write this down? I asked. Because I am a teacher, Claire, I document. And because someone needed to remember what Joanne worked so hard to make everyone forget. That was the night I started thinking about leaving. Not the marriage, not yet, but the table, the Aldridge table, the table I had fed for 10 years, the table that no longer had a chair for me. If you have ever loved a family that made you invisible, if you have ever cooked a meal that nobody thanked you for, if you have ever stood in a kitchen while the people you fed sat at a table that did not include you, type, still here in the comments. Because what happened next is why I needed to tell you this story. And it started with a rolling pin and a phone call to Charlotte, North Carolina. January 2023. I moved out of the Aldridge house on White Marsh Island on a Tuesday morning while Graham was at work and the children were at school. I took my clothes, my mother's recipes in their binder, the silver ring she gave me at 16, the oak cutting board my father made, and my set of cast iron pans. Everything else I left. I drove to Charlotte, North Carolina, 4 hours and 12 minutes. I had $6,200 in a savings account Graham did not know about. I had been putting away small amounts from the household budget for 3 years. I rented a studio apartment on East 7th Street for $1,150 a month. I got a job at a restaurant called Southerly within 2 weeks. Line cook. $16 an hour. I did not tell Joanne where I was. I told Graham I needed space. He called 23 times in the first week. I answered once. Claire, this is dramatic. Graham, your mother removed my chair from Thanksgiving dinner. That was a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding, it was a decade. Silence. Then, what do you want me to do? I want you to choose me. More silence. Claire, you know how Mom is. That sentence, that exact sentence. He had been saying it for 10 years. You know how Mom is. As if her cruelty was weather, as if it was something we all just had to endure. As if choosing between his wife and his mother was the same as choosing between rain and sunshine. Goodbye, Graham. I hung up. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, and I began, not to plan revenge, to build a kitchen. Within 3 months at Southerly, the head chef, a woman named Roberta Sims who had cooked in New York for 15 years, pulled me aside. Claire, you are wasted on the line. Your sauces are better than mine. Your knife work is faster than anyone here. What are you doing making $16 an hour? I told her my story, not the whole thing, just enough. Roberta looked at me the way my mother used to look at me when I brought home a good report card. You need your own kitchen, she said. I cannot afford a kitchen. You cannot afford not to have one. That night, Roberta took me to a bar called Growlers on North Davidson Street. She ordered 2 bourbons and set one in front of me. When I was 27, she said, I was cooking for a man in Tribeca who told me my soups were good but not quite Manhattan good. He said it with a smile like he was doing me a favor. She took a sip. I opened my own place 3 years later. It lasted 14 months. Then I came south and started over. Why are you telling me this? Because the man in Tribeca is bankrupt now, and I am the one teaching his recipes to a woman from Valdosta who makes them better than he ever did. The people who dismiss you are never the ones who define you. I finished my bourbon. It burned, but it burned in a good way. March 2023. I found a commercial kitchen space for rent in the Noda neighborhood of Charlotte. $1,800 a month. I could not afford it, but Roberta co-signed the lease. Pay me back when you're famous, she said. I named the company Magnolia and Vine. The magnolia for Savannah, the vine for growth. I started with private dinner parties, 8 to 12 guests. I charged $75 per person. I cooked everything myself. My mother's pecan pie. My grandmother's shrimp and grits. My own creation. A low-country risotto with smoked sausage and roasted corn that tasted like a July evening on the Georgia coast. Word spread. By September 2023, I was booked 6 weeks out. By January 2024, I hired my first employee. By June 2024, I had 8 employees and a waiting list of 4 months. Here is what I need you to understand about building something from nothing. It does not happen fast. It does not happen cleanly. My first big client was a couple in Myers Park named the Wellborns. Anniversary dinner for 12. They wanted low country. I made shrimp and grits with stone-ground Anson Mills grits, pan-roasted red snapper, and my mother's pecan pie for dessert. When I served the pie, Mrs. Wellborn took one bite and set her fork down. She looked at her husband and said, "David, this is the best pecan pie I have ever eaten." Then she looked at me. "Where did you train?" "My mother's kitchen in Valdosta, Georgia." She smiled. "Please give me 50 of your business cards." I did not have business cards. I went to a print shop the next morning and ordered 200. They were gone in 3 weeks. In August 2023, I lost my biggest client, a corporate event for 80 people. The oven failed at 4 in the afternoon. I served cold salads and apologized to every single guest. The client never called again. I sat in the parking lot after and thought about calling Graham. I did not call Graham. I called an appliance repair company and took out a loan for a second oven. There were nights I slept on the kitchen floor because I could not afford to drive home and waste the gas. There were mornings I cried into the prep sink because I missed Connor's laugh and Meredith's rolling eyes and even Graham's habit of stealing bites before dinner was ready. I missed the Aldridge table. Not because it deserved me, because I had loved it, and love does not care whether it is deserved. But I did not call Graham. I did not call Meredith. I did not call Joanne. I let the silence speak for itself. I cooked. And every dish I made was a sentence in a language the Aldridge family never learned to read. October 2024. The Charlotte Observer published a review by Thomas Park, the most respected food critic in the Carolinas. The headline, "Magnolia and Vine, where a Valdosta girl turns memory into flavor." He wrote, "Claire Aldridge does not cook food. She translates memory into flavor. Every dish is an autobiography." The review went everywhere. Southern Living picked it up in their spring issue. Food and Wine called. By December 2024, Magnolia and Vine had revenue of $1.8 million and 23 employees. I had done it, not to prove Joanne wrong, to prove my mother right. My mother, Linda Holloway, who died of pancreatic cancer in April 2024 without ever seeing my restaurant. She died on a Tuesday. I closed the kitchen for a week. I drove to Valdosta. I sat in her empty house and held the recipe binder she had given me when I was 18. On the inside cover, she had written in pencil, "Feed people, Claire Bear." It is the closest thing to prayer. I have that binder in my kitchen today. Page 1 is pecan pie, her pecans, her Caro syrup, her hands that smelled like butter and brown sugar even in her hospital bed. I sat on her kitchen floor and wrote her a letter. I told her about the restaurant. I told her about the review. I told her I wished she could taste the risotto. I told her I was sorry I was not there more. Then I put the letter in the recipe binder between pages 47 and 48, right between her corn pudding and her banana pudding. And I went back to Charlotte and I kept cooking. February 2025. Meredith called. She was 12 now. We had spoken sporadically since I left, short conversations, careful ones. She was angry at me for leaving. I understood that. Leaving looks like abandonment to a child, even an adult child. "Mom," her voice was different, softer. "Grandma Joanne is throwing a dinner party, her 72nd birthday. She is inviting 60 people, the whole family, business associates, church friends." "That is nice," I said. "Mom, Grandma hired some fancy catering company from Atlanta. She is paying them $12,000. I did not say anything. "Mom, I looked you up. I typed your name into Google." Silence. "I found your restaurant, Magnolia and Vine. I saw the pictures, your kitchen, all those people working for you. Mom, why did you not tell us? Would anyone have listened?" "I am listening now." She was quiet for 10 seconds. Then she said something I had waited years to hear. "I should have come to the kitchen, that Thanksgiving. I should have gotten up from the table." I felt something crack behind my ribs, not pain, release. "You were 9, Meredith. That was not your job. But I saw your chair was gone and I just sat there. I hate that I just sat there. What do you want, sweetheart? I want you to come to the party." "Meredith, I am not interested in a confrontation." "It is not a fight, Mom. There will be 60 people there. They all remember your cooking. And Grandma paid all that money for some caterer, and she does not even know you have your own restaurant now." Here is what I have learned since then. The erosion was so gradual I did not even recognize it as cruelty. Each violation was too small to confront on its own, but together they formed a pattern designed to make me question my own worth. Psychologists call it ambient abuse. I did not learn that term until my therapist in Charlotte explained it, but I knew the feeling my entire marriage. I told Meredith I would think about it. I thought about it for 4 days. Then I called Aunt Lucille. She has her list, Claire, the paper one, and she has been adding to it. Why would you go? Because I am 78 years old and I want to see Joanne's face when she realizes what she threw away. March 15th, 2025. Saturday evening, 6:30 in the evening. Joanne Aldridge's 72nd birthday dinner, the house on White Marsh Island, 60 guests. I had not been inside this house in 26 months. I parked on the street. I wore a simple black dress. My mother's silver ring, small earrings, no jewelry that shouted money. I carried nothing except my phone and a clear folder with one document inside. The front door was open. Music from a string quartet floated across the porch. Guests in cocktail attire drifted through rooms I used to clean. I walked in. Nobody recognized me at first. I had lost 15 pounds from working 14-hour kitchen shifts. My hair was shorter. My posture was different. You stand differently when you have built something real. Graham saw me first. He was holding a glass of wine near the fireplace. His eyes went wide. He set the glass down and walked toward me. Claire. What are you doing here? Meredith invited me. His face cycled through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Surprise, confusion, fear, guilt, then something I had not seen in years, shame. You look different. I am different. The Atlanta catering company had set up in the kitchen. I could smell the food from the hallway, seared duck breast, truffle risotto, something with lavender, expensive, technically competent. No soul. Joanne appeared in the dining room doorway. Cream blazer, pearl buttons, her hair set perfectly. She saw me and her smile froze the way ice forms on a windshield. One crack, then spreading. Claire! She said my name like a problem she thought she had solved. What a surprise! Hello, Joanne, happy birthday. She recovered faster than most people would. How lovely of you to come. Are you doing well? I am doing very well. Meredith crossed the room and stood beside me. Connor was behind her. He was 10 now, taller, his father's jaw, his mother's eyes. He stood 3 feet away, not close enough to touch, not far enough to hide. Hey, Mom, he said, 2 words that rebuilt a room. Hey, baby. Aunt Lucille appeared from the hallway. She was wearing a navy dress and flat shoes because at 78 she no longer pretended her feet did not hurt. She walked to the center of the room and raised her voice. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. The room quieted. Joanne looked at her sister with narrowing eyes. Lucille, this is my party. And this is my family. Both things are true. She turned to the room. Most of you know Claire Aldridge. She was married to Graham for 10 years. She cooked for this family for a decade. She made the Christmas dinner and the Easter brunch and the 4th of July boil. She made birthday cakes and soup for the sick and food for every funeral. Joanne stepped forward. Lucille, this is not the time. It is exactly the time. Lucille reached into her bag and pulled out the folded sheet of paper. For the past 6 years, I have kept a list of every family event Claire was excluded from. I have the dates. I have Joanne's exact words. 14 events. Would anyone like to hear them? No one wants to hear that, Joanne said. Her voice was sharp now, controlled but cracking at the edges. Lucille, sit down. You are embarrassing yourself. I embarrassed myself for 10 years by saying nothing. Meredith spoke from beside me. Grandma, stop, please. Joanne looked at her granddaughter. Meredith, stay out of this. I cannot, Grandma. Meredith's voice was steady. Quiet, my voice, I realized. She had my voice. I sat at that table and watched my mom eat by herself in the kitchen. I did not get up. That was wrong. And I am not doing it again. Graham stood by the fireplace. He did not speak. His hands were in his pockets. He was choosing silence again. But this time the silence was not his weapon. It was his confession. A woman near the back of the room spoke up. I recognized her. Angela Park, the parent from Meredith's school who had told me what Joanne said about my cooking 6 years ago. I remember Claire's brisket, Angela said, at the 2014 Christmas party. Best thing I have eaten in this state. I asked for the recipe and Joanne told me it was a family recipe she could not share. But it was Claire's recipe. Was it not, Joanne? Joanne did not answer. Another voice from the crowd. Bennett Aldridge, Graham's cousin. Claire, I always thought you left because of Graham. Nobody told us any of this. Joanne turned to me. Her chin was raised. Her hands were clasped. She was performing composure. Joanne turned to the room. Claire has always been dramatic. Ask Graham. She left this family because she could not handle a simple holiday dinner. Graham flinched. He did not correct her. Claire, if this is about the chair, I have already explained. There was a seating issue. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. In the shower, in the car, standing over the prep table at 5 in the morning with flour on my hands. But standing here, I did not feel ready. I felt tired. There was no seating issue, Joanne. You removed my chair because you wanted me in the kitchen. You wanted me where you thought I belonged. That is not true. It is documented. Lucille has the dates. Joanne looked at her sister. You did this. Lucille shook her head. No, you did this. Every time you said her food was not refined. Every time you hired someone to replace her. Every time you told Graham that Claire was not Aldridge material. I just wrote it down. Joanne's eyes filled, not with tears of remorse, with the tears of a woman watching her own version of history collapse in front of an audience. I only ever wanted what was best for this family, she said. Her voice cracked. And then she said it, the sentence that proved everything. I grew up in a house where the table was everything. My mother told me that the table is where you show the world who you are. And I could not. I could not have people sitting at my table eating food made by a woman whose mother shelled pecans. The room went silent, not the polite silence of a dinner party. The deep silence of people hearing a truth they already suspected but never wanted confirmed. Joanne realized what she had said. Her hand went to her mouth. Graham finally spoke. Mom, stop. I looked at Joanne. I want you to understand that I did not feel triumph. I felt the particular sadness of watching someone you wanted to love prove that they never made room for you. I opened the clear folder. Inside was one page, a color photocopy of the Southern Living article. The headline, Magnolia and Vine, the hottest catering company in the Carolinas, run by a Valdosta girl who cooks with memory. I set it on the cherry table, the $8,400 table that once had no chair for me. This is what I built, I said. Not to prove you wrong, to prove my mother right. I looked at the room. My mother's name was Linda Holloway. She shelled pecans for $11.50 an hour for 22 years. She taught me everything I know about food. She died in April. She never saw my restaurant. I paused, but she would have loved the pecan pie. If you are still with me, hit subscribe now, because this last part is the reason I needed to tell this story at all. I turned to Joanne. I am not here for revenge. I am not here to humiliate you. I am here because my daughter asked me to come. I looked at Meredith. 1, I do not need an apology from you, Joanne. Apologies are words. I need actions. If you want to know your grandchildren, you will treat me with the same respect you give every other person at this table. 2, I will not cook for the Aldridge family again. That was a gift, and you do not give gifts to people who throw them away. 3, if Graham wants to have a conversation about our marriage, he knows where to find me, but it will be a conversation between equals. Not between a wife and a woman who thinks she is above her. Joanne stood perfectly still, her cream blazer, her pearl buttons, her perfect hair, and underneath all of it, a woman who had just heard her own cruelty spoken back to her in the calmest voice in the room. Meredith walked me to the car. Connor came too. He held my hand in the driveway. Mom, can I come visit your restaurant? Anytime, baby. Can I help cook? I will teach you everything Grandma Linda taught me. He smiled, the same smile he had at 3 years old when he blew out candles on a dinosaur cake that nobody ate. I drove back to Charlotte that night, 4 hours and 12 minutes. The same drive, but different. I opened the kitchen at 6 the next morning. Sunday prep. My team was already there. 23 people who chose to work with me. I tied on my apron. I opened the recipe binder to page 1. Pecan pie, and I cooked. Not for the Aldridges, not for Southern Living, not for anyone who needed me to prove my worth, for the people who already knew it. Love does not require you to shrink. Generosity is not the same as surrender. And the table you build with your own hands, the one where every chair has a name and every plate is full, that table is the only one that matters. My mother used to say, "Feed people, Claire Bear." It is the closest thing to prayer. She was right. She was always right. And every night when I lock the kitchen and drive home and sit at my own table with a cup of chamomile tea and the oak-cutting board my father made, I know exactly where I belong. Not at the Aldridge table. At mine.
I hope you enjoyed this tale. Please subscribe to support the channel. Goodbye for now.